Dear human, dear soul, I welcome you to my podcast series, Conversations with the Universe. Since a near-death experience, I have the gift to communicate with subtle levels of the cosmos. The knowledge from these for us invisible forms of energy I capture in my books, and it is now a great pleasure for me to share this knowledge, these conversations, with you as a supplement to the books. Please excuse me if the terms and articulations are not perfect. Our mother tongue is German, but we try to translate it to the best of our abilities. Thank you. Let's start the next chapter about the deceased, the waiting room. Dearest friend and teacher, please start speaking.
My request to all people who hear these words. I would like to state at the beginning of this research expedition that those who fill this way of being with respect and devotion will experience the fullness of the cosmos, even more than words can describe. It is the willingness within the souls to experience the whole that makes experiencing it possible in the first place. My way of teaching asks the listeners and the readers for their undivided attention, because these journeys into other levels of being will also overcome boundaries of the belief patterns in people. Overcoming them requires loving attention and respect for the big picture, the whole. It's not the doubts that will expand you, but being ready for the whole. I therefore ask you sincerely and lovingly, respectfully and mindfully, to walk this path with me and with us.
Duly noted, dear friend of the Indians. Would you like to continue?
Yes.
Well then, please begin.
I have begun my journey through the realms of the cosmos via the levels known to me. This includes, of course, the level of the deceased. This is where I would like to begin.
Okay, then please let's do that. How can I picture your traveling of those levels? To those levels. You decide to go there and then you actually move as if through time and space, or how does it work?
Yes and no. When I decide, I move into these levels through my soul power. You can think of it as moving through space and time, but it happens instantly, the moment I decide.
I see. So moving to the respective level doesn't require a certain travel time. You decided to do it, and then you are there.
Exactly.
I see. Okay, well then, please continue.
When I made the decision, the first thing I noticed was that the presence of the deceased in this area is completely different. This is again due to the different power potential. Some were and are like some sort of grey presence. There is little light in them. They seem as if they are sleeping. Others seem a bit more powerful and at the same time more mobile. I walked through these different forms of being and tried to sense which of them perceived me. But in fact, on this level no soul could perceive me. I kept walking further and further past the different forms of souls. Think of it like among human beings. Everyone looks different and everyone radiates a different energy from within themselves. This kind of radiance is of course all the more present outside the body. The plane in general seemed very dreamy in the sense of sleepy, as if these souls were waiting to be picked up.
Please describe this a bit more for me. Are there landscapes? Are the souls very close together or are they more distant?
We must make a distinction, as this level of the deceased is divided into different areas. But more about that later. To answer your question, the energy of this level is unfortunately relatively weak. Not all of them seem very cheerful, joyful, and lovingly radiant there. Many seem as if they were asleep. They seem to be spending their being in some kind of waiting state. Landscapes, as you know them, don't exist there, but everything is rather in this quiet, still, waiting position. They have yet to realize that they are no longer in a body. And this kind of realization of existing in other form of being without a body, usually very weakened and unaware, seems like what you would call a waiting room.
Well then, let's call it waiting room. Please try to give me more details. Do they sit? Do they lie? Do they stand? What do they look like? Are there all the souls round? Are some having an oval shape?
More continuously round energies, set as such in the space of the cosmos.
I remember that you have more of an oval shape because you are more widened soul.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. When you walk there, you walk through a kind of spherical field. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. The positions of the spheres are not all at one level, but some are a little further down, some a little further up, some in the middle. And they lie there like beads of different colors, but at rest.
Don't they have faces?
No.
Really? That's something that is hard to imagine. You assume that they take on some kind of astral body and yet still have kind of a face as an echo.
No, not in my perception. It may be that such echoes are still perceived by other forms, but I really only perceive the soul essence.
And that is very, very nice. But let us take a quick detour, because I remembered the level of the white spheres. These souls we are talking about are not the same as the white spheres, right?
No, definitely not. The white spheres are usually smaller, but this depends on the individual soul and its enriched energy. Therefore, there is no baseline for a comparison.
Oh, I would have thought that there might be some souls which have lost so much energy that they end up being a small white sphere.
No. Generally speaking, there is a distinct difference. The white spheres are more or less all the same size, while the respective souls are completely different sizes and colors, and are more mobile, or less mobile, as the case may be. We are currently describing the area where they seem a little less mobile. They are waiting.
Yes. Well then, please continue to describe me how you walked through this plane. So they didn't notice you, not at all, right?
No.
Can you touch these souls there somehow?
Yes.
So you materially can touch their materiality.
Yes.
And what happens when you do so?
They seem as if they are touched while in a twilight sleep, as you would say. They briefly realize the presence, and then they lapse back into that state.
That is incredibly interesting, because all this is then really a consequence of the powerlessness of these souls. We have already talked about that, what the impulses are for a soul to move again, and when these impulses can happen. I'm just very surprised that a touch from you is not enough to get them into power back, more lifeliness. You could be kind of a reminder that there's much more than just this waiting attitude.
No, Sylvia. You are looking at this too much from a human perspective. They are there because it is good, and right for them to be there, as they are recovering from life, from the exhausting experiences in their last life.
Okay. Well, please move on. Describe this level a little bit more for us.
There are several materialized forms of the souls which present as completely different shapes.
What? You mean they don't look spherical?
Exactly.
But what do they look like then?
Like beings of a special kind who have undergone a kind of mutilation. They are not round like spheres, but have many dents and a warped shape.
Please describe this to me in more detail. How can I picture this? What do you mean by warped? Are they angular?
No. They are full of dents. Some are less spherical, others are of indeterminable shape. They are not harmonious.
And does this shape remain or does it change?
It remains. They are as it formed in this mass.
Wow, like a stamp. Can you tell me if these deformed energy shapes are a different color than the ones that are round?
Yes, they are definitely a different color, less powerful and even less full of light.
Okay, so these warped shapes, what do they have? Do they have any color at all?
No, they are, as you would say, gray or grayish. There is very little light, but they are not black, of course. But there is very little color and light, and they look as if they have lost all the glow of being.
That is so sad. Can't you help them somehow?
No, my dear, it's not my job to intervene. The way these forms are in this is the sum of the steps of these people, these souls, in their other lives. And they must reach the point on their own to want to change this state. You know that. This must not under any circumstances be initiated from the outside.
Yes, I know. I'm just saying, maybe they are not doing well.
We can only guess how they are doing. I can't really communicate with them. Only you can.
Yes, I know. I do think I have communicated with such soul energies before. And they feel alone. They are very lonely and they still have a lot of negativity in them from the last lives. It's awful. I would really like to help them, give them an injection of love.
But you are doing that already, dear.
I know, my dearest friend, but anyway, please continue. So I'm picturing you walking through this plane, surrounded by all these souls, all waiting and unresponsive.
This is exactly the right description of this level. But I would like to direct your attention to the fact that there are nevertheless different areas in this kind of subtle matter. Areas within the areas. When I entered the plane of the deceased, I first encountered this waiting room. But after I had walked there for a while and observed many souls in their waiting position, something began to transform. Every now and then, a soul would move away from this place, so to speak. I don't like describing it as a location, but there is no better way that makes sense within your spatial understanding.
What do you mean by they moved away?
Suddenly, as if from one moment to the next, a soul began to move away from this plane at speed, downward.
Downward? Not up?
Down.
And have you ever followed such a soul?
No. Because the way it moved conveyed quite clearly that it was now entering the next incarnation.
Wow. Is it fair to say that these energies, these souls, were pulled downwards?
Oh no, not at all. They moved there all by themselves. There was nothing pulling them. At least that's how I perceived it. It really seemed like a snap decision to move away from this way of being again, and they began their incarnation.
I want to capture this a little bit more clearly. So I can imagine there is the sea of energies, and then some of them just move away downwards. Just like that, right?
Right. Yes. They move down into the lower frequency ranges where physicality waits. And at the same time, others replace them. Therefore, this plane is alive, but nevertheless still a waiting room.
So you mean souls keep coming bit by bit, and at the same time, others leave. But when the new souls come, where do they come from? Do they also come from below?
Yes.
Oh, so that means we have some souls moving down from this level as well, some moving up into it from below.
Exactly. Everything there moves as a kind of very, very slow mass. And this is the form into which the recently deceased enter, and which the newly incarnated exit. It's like a mass of all these energies which remain, but it's nevertheless in motion, albeit less so compared to the higher subtle levels.
I always thought that there are also souls which have to incarnate even though they may not want to. Does that happen?
No, it can't, since free will is the crucial principle.
Can you say, statistically speaking, that those who have distorted energies incarnate more often than those who are even-keeled, balanced and healthy?
That's a very nice question, Sylvia. I love your accuracy. It is only through the details that you understand the big picture.
Thank you.
It seemed that the distorted forces usually returned faster to incarnations than the less distorted and normal soul forces. But purely from the colorings that I perceived in the souls, it was actually only those that are energetically weak that were most likely to move away from that state and into incarnate form. I attribute this to the fact that the energetic realm vibrates at a higher frequency than in the body, in the incarnation. This means that these distorted souls probably find this state rather unpleasant and therefore long for incarnation. Additionally, as you know, every incarnation of course contains the potential for these souls to purify and grow again. And of course, those with the least energy have the greatest longing for growth and purity.
And have you ever experienced souls that are there eternally, like waiting forever?
No. Everything was in a permanent exchange. Some stayed longer, but they still moved back into the bodies.
We have already discussed the subject of dying in our other works. And we have addressed the issue of souls being ejected from the body in accidents. Can you conclude from the type of soul energy or the soul movement, or from how they come from the other plane, the plane of being incarnated into this plane, whether there were souls that were ejected or whether they were able to detach themselves slowly, as is usually the case?
Yes.
That's what I thought. Please describe. How can you tell what exactly is the difference?
When souls have been flung out of bodies, they usually present in a staggering manner. They do not move with determination from the plane of corporality into the plane of the waiting room. They stagger a little.
I see, but they still end up there.
Yes, of course, but usually only after a while, as you would say. They stagger and are still looking for some kind of path.
How can I picture this? I mean, in principle, everything is cosmically steered. I would have thought that they, if they were ejected from the body, immediately end up in this other plane. If they do not immediately end up there, but stagger, where exactly, how exactly do they stagger? I mean, do they still stagger around the plane or physically, or do they stagger along the path? How can I picture this?
They stagger around their former diseased bodies. But notice that it is difficult to maintain their presence there. Things get lighter and lighter around them, and then in turn means that they are moving away from physicality, little by little. They then arrive in the waiting room. But getting there is often very troublesome for these souls, because they can't let go. They keep holding on, don't understand what has happened. This new form of being, the changed perception, all these things confuse these souls, and you can see this confusion in their movements and, unfortunately, sometimes also in their shape.
But if someone was ejected from the body, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are mutilated because of that. I thought the mutilation was caused by the person's life and his work in the life, so to speak, by the thoughts and emotionalities and steps in their life.
Yes, that is also correct. But being ejected from the body can also create individual complicated moments. Imagine that the energetics, the energy, the soul energy from the body does not leave the body as a whole right away, but just parts. And the other part is still stuck in the body. That is very, very complex. Of course, the parts that are stuck, they teach themselves little by little, while the other part is outside the body but connected as if by a rubber band. Nevertheless, the part that has already been flung out of the body staggers around the body and wants to become its whole form in order to then reach the next level of being. All in all, there is no joy in being ejected from the body, and you could say that it is agonizing for these souls.
That is awful. But I trust that the cosmos has nevertheless set it up in such a way that these souls can eventually move into the other plane of being. They may be more or less badly mutilated, but they are still individual, aware, whole soul energy, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
We also talked about the fact that there are certain parts of a soul that can sometimes be lost. Is that something that also can happen with such an ejection?
Yes. And this is a very significant process for the souls. It entails many other energetics.
How exactly do I have to picture this? Is there one part that goes to the other level ahead of the rest?
You need to consider several components. There is indeed the issue that soul forces leave behind unaware remnants of very low energy when a soul is ejected from the body, and then walk on without this energetic part. We have already recounted this on the subject of how the white spheres are formed. In the best case, these very small remnants, which are very weak in energy, consolidate into white spheres. If not, they form other new forms of being in combination with other remnants. This is a very complex subject, and I would like to discuss this process another time.
Yes, please. It is fascinating, but of course it is getting us out of topic here now, as our intention is to describe the words first.
Let us get back to the detachment.
Yes.
Due to the circumstances, the environmental circumstances, these souls were ejected from the body sometimes cannot move on as a whole. That is, there are localities, moments, problems, circumstances of transition, which accelerate this disintegration of the soul energy into parts. In any event, This is caused by the process of ejection via an accident or just a sudden, unforeseen death of the organism. Another component to be mentioned here is the quality of the soul in life. How did the soul experience itself in its life? Was it powerful, joyful, loving? Or was it perception, negativity, and deprivation? If the soul quality is very connected and very much at peace with itself, in the truest sense of the word, it is more unlikely for it to disintegrate into pieces while in a state of shock, because it is strong enough. But if it's generally very weak, there is more danger of the soul being torn apart. I would once more like to point out what a huge responsibility you carry every day to be centered in yourself and to nurture, love, listen to, and give strength to your soul as an integral part of your being. You never know what life has in store for you, and unexpected transitions are as normal as life itself. But you can prepare for them by nurturing your soul.
Oh, yes. So there are different soul qualities, is that right? You are transmitting me some images to me just now. Some soul qualities are soft and quite flexible, and some are like old plasticine that hasn't been handled for a long time and has thus become dry and brittle. The plasticine is no longer cohesive, but tears into pieces. I assume you are sending me this picture so that I can pass this visualization of the qualities on to the people. Is that right?
That is right, Sylvia. Very, very good. You now don't just receive my words, but also my feelings, and the imagery that goes with them. Very nice. Brava. I'm very happy about this, because this adds another aspect to your perception. Very, very brava, dear.
Thank you. Well, back to this problem, which I consider very, very important, by the way, not least of all as a way to stress once more the responsibility that people have. What you are saying is that when someone keeps the soul force within themselves alive, aware, loving, and above all, flexible during their lifetime, and if they practice expansiveness, the risk of the soul energy tearing in a state of shock is greatly diminished. Right?
Right. That is exactly what I want to convey. Be flexible, lovingly stretchable, and open in your spirit, because this invigorates your soul power, and there's not much danger should such a shock happen to you.
Okay, but back to the souls to whom this happen, those that are porous and just not that flexible, so that they are torn apart. Does it actually hurt the soul?
No, not at all. It doesn't hurt, because the soul has no physicality with such emotionalities as body parts do, but it causes distress. It costs energy, and the soul becomes all the more confused by this condition. Do you understand?
Yes, I see. Now I understand the part about mutilations that can actually happen in this state as well. So there are two causes of mutilation. One is the way you lived, and the other is the way you died. And in the worst case, there is both, right?
Right.
So there are some souls which are deformed but still whole, and others which have lost soul parts of themselves in such a shock.
Yes, precisely.
What exactly is the cause of a soul being ejected from the body? Can it happen when someone burns to death or drowns?
No. Not just that. The circumstances are really varied. There are too many to list, dear. I can understand your approach and your scientific curiosity, and I always try to support this. But to describe in detail under which exact circumstances a soul encounters this problem would not be feasible. It's enough if you note that these problematic situations contain dangers. Nothing more. We want to increase mindfulness, not cause fear or create any negative kind of impulses. We want to inform people.
Yes, sure, I know. Okay, I got that. So, some stagger after possibly being torn apart and wait for the missing pieces to come to them. Others stagger, but reach the other plane in one piece. Does it also happen the other way around, that souls which want to incarnate leave one part in the waiting room and only the other parts of it incarnate?
It is complex. When the incarnation process is initiated, only whole souls go. They incarnate as a whole part into the plane of bodies without always being aware of themselves completely. Healthy souls, of course, incarnate as a part. In the best case, as a part which is aware of itself as a whole. In a worse case, they incarnate as a soul unaware of itself in its wholeness. It's impossible for a soul to incarnate and leave fragments of itself behind. The missing pieces must first come back to the home soul, even if these are unaware and contaminated. They must be reunited.
I see. Okay, please keep talking.
I directed my next observation to the more mobile area of the deceased. I would like to tell you about this tomorrow.
What do you mean by mobile? I mean, after all, you were just in an area that was rather like a waiting room, but moving very slowly. What exactly do you mean by more mobile?
I am saying that in my research on this level of the deceased, I have also encountered other areas in which other topics were more prevalent. And since this is a very extensive matter, I would like to tell you about it separately.
Okay, so we will stay in the level of the deceased and explore it further.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for another very interesting, very nice session. Thank you. Love.
Thank you, Sylvia. Love.